good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to yet another exciting Monday Mindset meeting. Before we get started and before I introduce my co-host, Rich Grof, in a second, I just want to welcome you, and I would like you to welcome yourself as well. So please, in the comments box, let us know where you're at in the city, what industry you're in. It's always great, for Rich and I to kind of take a peek at those and see what's going on. And I think by now everyone is so accustomed to the chat box, so you'll be able to see lots of different things that's going on. So thank you for joining us. Please note that Catherine Monroe, our producer or assistant extraordinaire, is going to be here as well. And she's going to be doing some stuff in the chat box. And so please look out for that. Catherine, I'm just going to mute you just so you're good. Other than that, we're going to also do something really special. I'm going to announce it. We did it last week, and we're probably going to do it again this week. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. So for this Monday Mindset meeting, I wanted to introduce Rich Grof. And so to get into it, Rich Grof is the CEO, speaker, and coach with Stoke Growth, and is also a transformational catalyst. He's going to tell us about that a little bit later. Educated as a certified professional performance sales coach who has worked with hundreds of business leaders and sales professionals. His ability to break down barriers into success in a simple and easily implemented format has launched many of his clients to the next level of achievement. By identifying and focusing on key performance trigger, Rich has made the difficult task of growth seem simple and obtainable in both individual as well as in a group setting. Folks, for today's meeting, please help me welcome Rich Grof.
Thanks, everybody. It's good to be here.
Good. So, Rich, anything I missed out? Anything about you that I missed out besides 1812?
Wow. Father of six, and we do all kinds of different things. But thank you very much, Kyle. When I need somebody to do a voiceover or maybe even give me a good introduction, that's actually bigger than life, that I'll definitely get to you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. That's my little side gig because, it's all about pivoting.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. I appreciate that.
All about pivot. So listen, Rich, let's get right into it. So, one of the things that we said that you're going to be chatting a little bit about, and it's a lot of the people that's been following our meetings and the community that we're really kind of setting up, is about how do we fine tune and get into the nitty gritty when it comes to the mindset and being able to take something actionable out of today. So with that said, you're going to be talking a little bit more about leadership in times of crisis. What does that really mean?
Great question. Leadership in times of crisis really boils down to a couple of different things. Here's some definitions that'll help. When I speak of leadership, I'm talking about your ability to influence someone else. For a positive outcome, usually a win to win, but it's about influence. And when we think about influence, we do it every day to everyone around us. So whether that's our spouse or significant others, it's our family, it's our business, it's everybody around us. And whether we like it or not, we show up and we influence. And the question is how? So we're going to get into that a little bit more today.
Excellent. It really is about influences, because when you take a step back of that, for some people, we tend to follow certain people than others we don't. When I think about leadership specifically, there's a few leaders. I think I would say maybe on one hand that I could count that no matter where I am in life, no matter what I'm going to be doing, if they call me, I will go. I will find out. And I hope those people that I've led will feel the same way. Is that the type of influence you're talking about?
Absolutely. Interesting thing about that is most of us have a natural leadership level. I tell folks that if you open up your side, there's an imaginary scale from 1 to 10 on your side, 1 being your low level, 10 you're being optimate. And we change, our leadership from time to time. But one of the leadership laws we like to teach folks is that, you always want to follow somebody bigger than yourself. Now, in times of crisis, the people you have been following, the people you have been aspiring to be like, may not be the same style of leader that they were before. Crisis amplifies leadership. It also shows all the cracks in people's leadership. So some will rise, others will fall.
Wow. And why is that? Like, why would you say that? Like, why would some rise? If they're a leader, because I think the expectation is if you're a leader, you're a leader. And so most people, it's natural to assume that they're going to, I'm going to do a lot of bouncing because for the first time I'm able to stand today. So if you see me doing that, it's because
I wish you could.
I'm getting excited. So most people expect a leader is going to be a leader, and they're supposed to do the same thing. They're going to, take care of,
Yeah.
themselves and their team and all that other stuff. So why do some rise and some don't in moments of crisis?
It's interesting, but most of us, we tell folks that, our brain is like a computer. So we have programs in there that run things. And most of us don't have a program for crisis. Not at this scale. We have never been through here before. So this is a brand new kind of, hey, well, we have to reinvent the wheel. Now you can take all the great criteria that you kind of built your leadership on, the people in your work, and maybe you manage a company or some folks, or maybe it's clients that you're managing. And all of that is relevant and real until you put it under a test. And the leadership test that we've got right now is called COVID-19. Congratulations, it's a big one. And everybody will radically be affected by it. So no matter how strong your leadership is, expect that things are going to go crazy for a little bit, and you're not going to really know. Now, interesting to kind of give you a perspective on this. When I was young, I grew up in Saskatchewan, and there was no jobs there. So I learned to respond to crisis or if you will, an adverse situation very early in life. So I had a great pattern for adversity. If you will, a great program, a great way to get my butt out of the program. When this thing hit, I actually faltered. I really did. My brain just did not want to work on it. And I went into tilt, and I got sucked into something I hadn't thought of at all. So I called my mentor and I said, hey, what do you think? And we talked about it. That helped a little bit. I phoned my other mentor, and he asked me 3 questions. And at the end of the 3 questions, he goes, Rich, this doesn't match the way you normally do things. You're actually waiting for the government to pull out their surprise package, to help everybody out. But you don't usually wait for a surprise package. You just get out there and give her. And he was right. And in that moment, my brain went back, and I clicked into my program, and I actually rose. So one of the things I like to encourage leaders to do, everybody on the call today, is actually dig back to the last time you found adversity in your life and kind of figure out what you did step by step, because that's what you're going to do through this.
Interesting. That is so brilliant. And I love that you talk about, the program, which is really about, the mindset, right? How am I going to teach my brain to think? And I think in moments of crises, what happens is we default to what was already been programmed. And that's kind of what you're just saying is,
100%.
When you go through those type of situation, go back to see how you handle the last thing. And so what if someone doesn't like what they did the last time they went through adversity?
Well, the great part about human beings is we're actually, we learn so fast, right? So if you went back to the last time that you went through adversity and you go, I don't want to do that again, you will naturally figure out a better and more creative way to actually do it this time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so what would you say, before we get into some questions here, what would you say are some good practices that people can go to reprogram or maybe program for those who may not have had, diversity or something adverse that kind of happened to them? What are some key things that you can say if they would start this now, this week, what would that be?
Good point. Leadership starts with self. So how do you lead yourself? Number 1 is you limited negative input. If you're watching it was one of the first things I did when my brain switched around. Christopher talks about it all the time. Kyle, you talk about it all the time, I'm sure. It's just, you got to stop getting in there. Nothing we can do in watching TV and all this doom and gloom and kind of contemplating and going to the coffee shop or, talking to our friends is going to help. The bottom line is that's not the mindset we need. So 1, limited negative input. Okay. Don't get into the conversations. You then need to turn around, make sure you've got your physical health taken care of, and you're getting your sleep. Do whatever you got to do to break those patterns. If you're in overwhelm, make sure you get some sleep or get somebody professional to give you a hand with that, because it'll definitely help. And then you got to decide something very key. Leaders always choose how they show up. And what I mean by that, it's a mindset that you walk into a room with, right? You're going to give a presentation. You're going to go make a big sale. You're going to go in and talk to somebody that's important to come into your company, or you're going to go talk to your spouse about something very important. You need to have a mindset about how you're going to show up. So how do you choose to be with COVID? How do you choose to show up with COVID? And I learned this from a pastor tons of years ago when we were actually at camp. He wasn't my pastor. He was a friend. And we were going through a big recession or something in Ontario at the time. And I said, so what do you think of all that? And he goes, well, I've just chosen not to participate.
Interesting.
I went, what? And my brain did, what? And I started to laugh. And he goes, no, that's my stance. I have chosen not to participate with the recession. And I went, that is bold, and that is cocky, and it's playful, and it really means a lot because it makes your brain recalibrate, right? So I have chosen not to get into the psychology or the spin of COVID. I have chosen not to be there. Now I have to watch on the other side of that I don't believe, I don't push myself to do activities that make it feel like I'm actually putting myself in jeopardy with that. So it's like common sense, right? I still wear my gloves. I still, have face masks. All of those things. I don't, exercise what I would call silly behavior, right? But, it's just choosing how you're going to show up every day makes a world of difference.
I love what you said, yes. And, Christopher, and I think as coaches, I think we all kind of get into that mindset too. And I think what I often say to clients or even with others I chat with is that the internal stories, right? That negative story, that the negative input that you mentioned, the internal stories that we tell ourselves, sometimes we don't realize it leads to external actions that we don't probably necessarily want, right? Yeah. And so I love that you said about really limiting what that looks like. I'd love to open this up for some questions and comments and see what anyone has there. And so if you have some specific questions for Rich, what we will be also doing is after the show or after the meeting, we will be sticking around for another 10, 15 minutes to do a Q&A like we did last week with Christopher on the motivation. That seems to have went over really well with people, so they want to be able to do that again. And that's more of an open format just to kind of get into it. However, I'm curious about some questions that you may have right now about leading in a crisis to Rich, and we'll get into that. But before we get into that, Rich, I want to also ask you, outside of the leader, what can the employee do, right? Because if they're not leading, and they're also going through the crisis as well, right? And if their leader is not stepping up, like we were saying, some will rise and some won't. For those who are not stepping up to that level, what could they do?
Well, everybody's a leader. That's the way we look at it. So if you're an employee in an organization and you're working with people, remember that they're human beings and they're all going through their own journey. So number one, you take care of yourself. You take care of your mental attitude. Number two, you want to turn around and you assess the situation properly so you understand what's going on. And then three, you want to have a simple focus and a simple vision, which includes the following. Please be gracious to the people that are at the helm. Right? Because you know what? It is always great that you understand leadership and you get irritated if somebody is not actually doing what they should be doing when they're, in positional leadership. They're at the top of the company, their owner maybe. And if they're freaking out, just realize that they're a human being and that they need your, TLC as well and your understanding during this time. We're all going through this. Nobody's immune. I met one person that said they weren't, being affected, and then a week later, they were a manager, and they were spinning out of control in tears. Wow. Everybody's going through something, right?
Everyone is going through it. I mean, we're all fallible, right? And those are things that happens. Yeah. Even though I'll never admit that to Christopher, but still, we have that. Christopher is chopping at the bits here to ask a question to me. So, Christopher, can you unmute and show yourself? And what's your question for Rich?
Absolutely. So, actually, first thing I'd like to say is, Kyle, get off my back. Okay, now we can move on.
Yep.
This might be a little bit unfair because 3/4 of my team is on this call, but I do have a question. So during the first 2 weeks of this, Rich, as one of the leaders, as one of the two leaders in my company, I really struggled to balance what I felt was pure honesty about our circumstance. Versus, kind of balancing, and remembering that sometimes in states like this, the employees go to a place of fear, right? Like it's all fear, right? And I was in my own fear, right? And so I felt like I was honest, but of course through that honesty, sometimes people got upset because it's like, I think we're good. We can keep you employed for another 7 days. Like that's, because until there was, some government funding, which is still coming a little too slow, but there's nothing we can do about that. It was kind of like, how are we going to manage this? Right. And so, in the process, I'm concerned that the team was worried about me as part of it because I was reacting quite poorly. And I'm also concerned about, what is that balance between, pure honesty, versus like, okay, what do they need to know to be successful? And I don't think I've ever had a good filter because I always come at it from, you should know how I'm feeling and thinking. so that you can be there with me. And I don't know if it's a good leadership style, but I'd love to hear from you on that.
Well, I love the fact that you're authentic, and I'm sure that your people do too. You know, authentic individuals, we can go with them up and down. The part that I like to look at for myself as a leader is that in the moment, you're going to have your own personal emotion. You're also going to be wanting to tell the truth. Truth is subjective sometimes, so we have to tell them enough about the plain, honest things that are going on. But even more important is the third step. The third step is, what are you committed to? Right? So when I was in my realm of losing my mind before my coaches, got me on track, I was in doom and gloom. It's terrible. You don't understand. I mean, I was having emotion. I had people say to me, wow, that's really negative. And I was of no use to the people that I was trying to serve at all. When I came back out of it, my brain cleared and I got the fog out, and I go, what's the most important part? What I chose to say was, we will make it through one way or the other. We are going to prosper through this. We are going to figure out a way to, turn around. I don't know what it looks like. I can't control that, but I am committed to, one, us being team, and two, us making it through. That's what I'm committed to. And of course, everybody's, well, what's going to happen next week? Just say, you know what? We're taking it day by day. And I think in the first, it was very interesting. I work with my daughter, Fallon, and we are business partners, and she's fully trained as a coach and brilliant. Her and Christopher and Kyle know each other rather well. Mm-hmm. So, the thing that was really interesting that she could tell you was, at one point we did what we thought was logically correct, which was going to lay her off and lay off the rest of our team. She had to write up her own exit letter because she's our president. Mm-hmm. Right? And she goes, it was the most brutal exercise she's ever had in her life, was actually to write her own, layoff letter. Now, what happened was, 2 days before we actually were ready to go forward, they announced that they were going to do something. So we waited till it came through, hence the 75%. So we said, yeah, we can make it through. Right? Will it cost us? Yeah. Does it matter? No. It's more important that we stick together. That's more important. So there's three parts of this. You got to turn around. And the third part as a leader is, yes, be honest, but don't put your stuff on them. And, so be honest as much as you possibly can. Calm people down and tell them what you're really committed to. And then when people go is, okay, we're all committed to stay together. We don't know what that looks like, right? Where leaders fail, though, is they say something fluffy, like, we're all doing it together, but I'm really just going to take care of myself.
Right. That's exactly it.
That's cool, actually, because I don't know how well I did with 1 and 2, but number 3 we did well. I think,
of course, you would.
Talked about we're committed to, very specifically, we're committed to cutting our salaries before we let people go. We're committed to,
Well, those are the actions, Christopher, that you're thinking of doing, as long as you give them the context. You don't know what the actions could be because they changed like 17 times before the first 2 weeks were over, right? It was just ad hoc. Everybody's making it up. Nobody knows what's going on.
Thank you very much, Rich. Great answer. I appreciate that. By the way, folks, we couldn't ask for better competition. Like, if you hate Kyle and I, you need to go talk to Rich and Fallon. We love our competition. They are the absolute best competition in the city for Change My Life and Change My Business coaching. If you don't like us, check out Stoke Coach. Sorry, Rich. You
Grof.
Thank you. Yeah.
You see, we don't think of you folks as because you have such unique gifts and talents. We don't think of you as competition. What you do, you do so extremely well and we don't do that as well. So we'd love to, have people go over your direction first to get the assistance that they need. Just that's the way it works, right?
Yeah, Rich, thanks for saying that. I mean, Christopher is my competition, and I hope I am his. So trust me.
Yes.
It's really about raising the bar for everyone.
I hate you, Kyle.
I will see you in a couple of weeks, Christopher. I want to tap on Michelle McNabb. Michelle, did you want to just kind of talk a little bit about what you were saying about, because, sometimes I think Michelle is talking about something as well, and someone else mentioned it, Rich, which is, what about resistors? What if you have employees who are just resistors, or other leaders who are just resistors to the change and taking stock of what's happening? Michelle, would you like to kind of come on and talk a little bit more about what you've been putting in the comments there?
Oh, the resistors wasn't actually my question. I see it's John McIntyre.
It's John's. Yeah, it's John. But you were talking about dead wood. What exactly?
Oh, that's specific to my my situation before COVID-19. I had a number of crises that came up that thankfully caused me to reevaluate my situation. and really see where I was spending money. And I developed a system where I could work out each week how much money everybody was making or losing us, luckily. So it kind of put pressure on me to actually have those hard conversations. And in South Africa, there's a lot of strict rules before you can fire somebody. And these were my friends as well. You know, they'd been with us for a while, generally losing me money for a long time. So we managed to build a performance management plan. We gave them a chance. And at the end, I mean, like when the one guy left and found another job, he sent us all cake. So it wasn't acrimonious. But if I hadn't had those problems beforehand, I would have sat comfortably continuing to make mistakes.
Yeah.
So I'm just, from a personal perspective, I'm really glad I had crises before this, because now that COVID-19's happened, and actually, unfortunately, all the staff I have left, now I really can't get rid of them. I don't want to get rid of them, and we don't have as much support from the government. So I'm kind of like dipping into my savings so I can keep paying my staff, but at least I know those are the best good ones. And I think it's brought us all closer together as well.
Right.
Not
Michelle,
physically.
right. Michelle, thank you for that, and tapping in all the way from Cape Town there. So yeah, which is great. Richard, I want to touch on what Michelle just kind of mentioned there, is around, you know, being given an opportunity to work with your people, give them an opportunity to, one, know their contribution, right? And then also, you know, at some point you're going to have to make some tough decisions, right? I mean, is that a part of that as well when we talk about?
Yeah, it is, because as businesses grow, we typically grow our businesses. We bring people on. You know, most of our, I'd say almost all of the people that we actually have on Stoke Growth as our small business platform, we don't find anybody that's a ruthless boss. We usually find people that are extremely caring, that really want to take care of their people, that will go to the end of the world. I know people that are pulling out of their personal savings account right now to take care of folks. I know, and you know, they're doing amazing things. They're working, you know, extra hours to try and get things going. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. But I think the key thing is that during these times when we're growing, sometimes because of good nature, we just don't want to hurt people or whatever. We give them extra chances, or we allow behavior not, you know, to happen that we don't address. So when you get something like this, it shocks the system, and a shock to the system allows us to reevaluate everything down to a core. Not that it's all about money, because people contribute a lot more sometimes to the environment and make everybody more productive. It's the individual that maybe is on the borderline that's fighting everything along the way and taking 60 to 70% of your energy, that person it's now it's time to, you know, see if we can change your behavior. But I love what you said in the sense that you actually, you know, put a performance evaluation together and a plan to get them, you know, up to speed and gave them a good shot. And you know what, maybe they weren't a cultural fit. If you've got a performance culture and they weren't ready to rise, they kind of self-identify and move on, because we're all about the performance. That's how we like to manage people, is more by performance rather than, you know, metrics of those types of sorts. But yeah, so you want to do the exact same thing. There will be that happening. The city of Calgary is doing that here. My wife works for the city of Calgary. I know that when and they're unionized, so I know when they rehire, they're going to pick the people that are easiest to work with, show up on time, and do a great job, because that's a great employee. They all get paid the same amount of money, so that's the way it's going to work.
And sometimes it's both ways, right? You know, it's like, how do you show up as an employee? And, you know, sometimes, you know, I've said to people, it's just, when you show up at a job, you still have to do the job you're hired to do, right? That was the core thing. So if you're trying to appease to the manager or the leader or all these other things, or appease to other people, because here's the reality: when a leader wants to let you go, they don't involve you in the conversation. They don't sit you down and says, hey, you know, Susie Bell, we want to let you go. What do you think about that? Right? So they're never going to tell you. So therefore, it's best for you to just to show up the way you show up and do what you do. As we kind of wrap up here, thank you so much about all of these great stuff, but I don't want to lose sight of what John kind of mentioned about the resistance piece. Like, how do you deal, like what would be a quick little tip for people who are resisting the change or their circumstance?
So good news, everybody will have amplified emotions during this period of time. So if people are resisting the change, that's 100% normal. If they are normally the kind of people that don't like change, that would even make it worse. So your job as leaders to be very understanding with what's going on, reassuring and helping them through the process. If they are absolute that they will not conform and not move forward with you, then unfortunately they're going to get left behind. But do everything that you possibly can to help them calm down and work with you all the way through the process. you kind of owe it to them if you brought them on. And there's a lot of certain personality types that don't like change, and there's other reasons that people don't like change. And COVID just took it and literally 100 times whatever that normal response was. Get them help. I mean, Christopher could help them, work that out a little bit, or whatever's required, so they could get more comfortable with change. Everybody's going to require something or some time to change. Weeks to a month is not uncommon.
Wow. Okay.
Just so we're clear.
Thank you for that. Catherine's just going to be sending everyone some information. And Rich, if someone wants to get in contact with you outside of what Catherine's going to put up, are you working on anything right now? Is there something you'd like to let everyone know as we kind of wrap up here? And don't forget, we will be doing a quick Q&A for those who'd like to stay on right after the outro. We'll come back and be able to kind of connect. And then also what we're doing this week is Catherine's going to also be putting out a survey. So we'd love to get your feedback. Was this relevant for you? What resonated? What didn't? What can we do better? Would you recommend this? Really a few questions that we want to be able to ask that Catherine's going to be posting shortly, so you'll be able to get that. But are you planning anything, Rich? What are you doing?
Oh, yes, Kyle, absolutely. For all the people on the call, this is my leadership moment. So we are committed to helping if you will, small businesses grow. And we understand that coming out of COVID, it will be a wild and woolly time. And we have no idea what that's going to look like. We probably will be doing a group program. You've got my email there. Please go ahead and say, put me on the list to keep you informed. Love to do that. But we are thinking of something that will be economical, something that will be full spectrum, so that you won't be losing any of the value, and something that can help people restore themselves and get their companies back up and going for the next year.
Excellent. Rich, thank you so much for being on, folks. Just a quick summary. When we talk about leadership in crisis, is really about stopping the negative input, because the stuff that we put in there is going to go out externally that we may not have. So I think, one of the big nuggets I know I'm going to take away, Rich, is the fact that, look back at the last time you dealt with a situation that was adverse to you, or some diversity, or just some crisis that you may have called, and how did you react to that? I think that was an interesting piece. And then how can we set the mind up, reprogram it to then deal with crisis again? So I really, really like that takeaway for it as well. So thank you so much for being here. Would love to have you back if you're willing to kind of come back, and then we could actually dive into a few other things that I know in leadership, because it's so broad. Thank you everyone for tuning in this week for this Monday Mindset meeting with Rich Grof from Stoke Growth. And we'll see you next week, where we have Raman Kohan, who's going to talk about more the career, because of all these layoffs and all these things that's happening. Now what? How do we go to that next level? And then Christopher Bay, much to my chagrin, will be coming back again on the long weekend, and we're just going to lighten it up. So it's just going to be about bringing the fun back. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and I will see everyone hopefully again next week. Take care. Never timed that whole thing right to go and change and then get back in time, right? To just do that. For those who know me knows I like a quick costume change. So Rich, thanks so much for that. Anyone who has any questions, who kind of want to tap in and unmute yourself and have a question for Rich, now is probably a great time. Good job on that, Rich. There's a lot of great insightful things there you added. So
thanks for the flow. I really appreciate Kyle for monitoring that and take care of that. That was awesome.
Oh, for sure. So Catherine does all the heavy lifting, really. I'm just the face. That's really what it's about.
Yeah, she's delightful to work with. Yes.
Which is great. And I feel a couple of people are talking about May the 4th be with you. So it's on the record. I've said it. May the 4th be with you too. So that's actually kind of get done.
Cool.
John, did you want to talk a little bit about the resistors piece of it? Like, did we cover that enough for you, or?
Sure, Kyle. I'll add a little bit to that. Resistors is a fairly definitive word, and it's hard to sort of get the meaning through a chat box, as effective as this whole platform is. But kind of what I meant by resistors is, from my leadership perspective, there's three kind of levels. One is a group of leaders, another is a group of followers, the third is a group of resistors. And there's nothing wrong with being in any particular group. We're probably in one of those groups all the time. But where I think crisis is remedied is in cohesion and conformity. And that's what I mean by resistors. People who are unable to really deal with the crisis in a matter of conformity, whether it's from fear or avoidance or whatever is the situation, right? Yeah. And so that's really kind of the basis of the question. I agree with Rich that everybody's a leader in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes we have to kind of teach them where they are leaders. Mm-hmm. But certainly in crisis, the word amplified is very appropriate. And so if there is some resistance, it's amplified. And you don't necessarily want to let people let them go, but you want to try and help them find a way to conform and be part of the process.
That's great, John. What do you think, Rich?
Well, I think I get what you're speaking about, John. In normal, what we call team dynamics, or if you will, team theory, how teams and groups work together, we always say that there's all kinds of different role plays or all kinds of different people playing roles in a team, and they're all necessary. A resistor, or somebody who pushes back on the system, in some systems are required, right? They push back, and that's the person that sits back there, and sometimes they just whisper behind the boss's back, and they don't really say too much, or they don't really become, if you will, that powerful until crisis hits. And then what happens is they actually, grab a group of people and they start to become a cell. And the cell becomes powerful, and it can cause if you will, a split in leadership, because now you've got people running one direction, other people going, screw that, I'm going the other direction, and the leader's going, hey, where am I going? Isn't anybody following me? And so you get this divide and conquer mentality. The one thing I'd let people kind of understand is a resistor in the system is usually a young, immature leader, not by age, but by their maturity. Okay, so they understand leader at a core level. They're looking at the other leadership and they don't like it. They've seen something that doesn't meet that perfect standard. And I did this when I was young too. I mean, I understood leadership at a core level, but I would look and I would say, this is how a leader should be. And the minute a leader was human, or they had a moment where they were not perfect, I wasn't able to actually say, oh, they had a moment, don't worry about it, move on. I would actually start to judge them. And then what would take place is I would lower that leadership in that person in my mind, and I wouldn't listen to them. Now that leads to all kinds of problems, such as getting fired, which I did have one of those, because I became cocky and arrogant, and I did lose a good job because of it. Now, the interesting part about those types of leaders is if you pull them off to the side and you say, I can see that you actually understand leadership, but I want to help you with a few things. I want to help you understand exactly what's going on, so that you can lead the people that are following you. And I'm going to rely on you if you're willing. But there's one thing I need from you. And they're going to go, sure, what? I need you to understand that I'm just a human being trying to do a darn good job just like you. And when you get into my chair someday, when you're here, you'll understand what it's like to have the spotlight on you every single day. And so therefore, I'm now watching you. Welcome to my spotlight. So please step up. Please allow me some grace during this. I'm doing the best I can. I need you to do the best you can. Let's work together and move on. If you get the resistors on your side and manage them, they have less resistance. And so the grapevine can be easily managed. You all know what the grapevine is, right? That formal communication that's 100% accurate all the time in any corporation company, right? Everybody's whispering behind the back and they all know what's going on before it actually becomes public, right? The grapevine is real, right? And if you manage the grapevine long before it becomes, a problem, what ends up happening is you now have everybody on your side. You can't get rid of them. You have to work with them. And the best thing you can do is give them respect. Remember, from a leadership perspective, respect is the currency. So if you give respect, you have the right to demand respect. And when they don't give it to you, please go snap them on the nose or on the hand. Wake up. You're not giving me respect. I want some respect here. You may not like what I'm doing, but when you stand in my chair, you can do whatever you want, and everybody will be looking at you. I'd like your input. Do it respectfully. Don't do it with criticism.
Yeah. And just from a disclaimer point of view, because I believe my lawyer's on here as well, is just Rich is not saying hit them physically.
No.
It's just
no, that's a verbal. Just kind of please push back. Yeah, no, don't.
In the air.
It's just correcting behavior. Right?
Rich, we're going to hear from. There's quite a few different things happening. I'm going to try to connect with someone here who had a great question about. She just recently got laid off, and as well as thinking about doing her own business. What she should be doing to make sure she's going to be a great leader. Before we get into that, there's something you mentioned about the resistors, and I think there's a couple things we have to be mindful of, because we often see this, is sometimes the resistors may be in disguise for an advocate for other people, right? And so we need to engage them. We don't necessarily want to shut them out, and exactly what you said, Rich, is like you want to engage them, you want to find out and have that conversation, because when they hear that you're also human, that's where it leads to the other things, right? Because that has happened to me. I've been fired at jobs where I'm just like, I should be leading, right? Not you, right? And we've done that. And I've learned throughout the years how to finesse that. And I'm a big fan of getting those people who are maybe the resistors or negative Nelly or whatever they would call them nowadays to really come on side, because I think truly deep down inside, they really want things to be better, but they just don't know how to articulate that or communicate that. So find a way to bring them in. Christopher's example is, give them an opportunity to be pissing from inside out versus outside in. Loosely translated, that's kind of where he goes with that. So I just wanted to kind of mention that as well. Lauren, can you hear us? Can you able to talk back?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. So let's see if I can get my video restarting too. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, so I was just recently laid off from an oil and gas job here last Monday. So yeah, I was one of the lucky ones that managed to survive the last couple of years. But I was planning to quit come on October anyways to start my own business. So this just happened a little bit sooner, and then with all of COVID happening, I'm kind of wondering, are there any, because I've never run my own business before, so is there any tips and tricks that you have for new leaders, and when it comes to kind of putting yourself out there and staying in that right mindset? Because I know there's going to be fear and uncertainty, and especially in this environment. And then the second one being is, would you recommend starting something now, or would you say maybe wait for another month until things kind of start reopening again?
Wow, great questions, Lauren. Congratulations on being independently available for greater things.
Right?
Right? You're actually in a perfect scenario when it comes to this. You've got a past background in business, so you know what that looks like. Your brain's already probably wired for it. You're coming new into the environment, so your brain is not stuck in the old way of doing things. Fantastic. And a good friend of mine said to me, every single business owner now has to look at it from, I'm starting a new business tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after, and the day after. So, you could start now. What you're looking for is opportunity. There will be people that will create massive businesses that weren't even in existence, in the next little while. There will be people that will take a business model, twist it on its head because that's what it needs, and then turn around and make a fortune. There will be other businesses that are what we call their keystone, solid businesses in every industry, right? And we don't know what their finance like. They might not be there tomorrow. We've already seen some of the ones that should have been, they had a perfect business model, but they weren't financed well enough that they could actually turn around and make it through. So my encouragement would be really simple. Number one, get yourself a good set of advisors, and keep those around. You probably have some already, but, phone them up and say, I need you as my advisor. I'm hiring you as my advisor. Your mental attitude is the most, I would say, the most valuable asset you have. Number one. Number two, you keep your eyes open for opportunity and possibility. What do the people need right now is the question. What do the people need? And then you turn around and you say, how can I make that happen? Right? Simple and clear. Then the third thing I would recommend is no matter what you get your heart set on, don't make it perfect. Be very agile and get it going fast. Speed is more important than perfect. You know, you're better to open up a hot dog stands out of the back of your half ton and have somebody buying a hot dog than you are to turn around, go buy the truck, outfit it for $60,000, and then go all the permits for 3 months and then kind of get it going. I mean, you're better to be actively doing it, making it happen, and changing on the fly and evolving than you are to turn around and make it perfect.
So that kind of answers a question then, because I have friends that are like, oh, I don't want to start a business until I get the website and the business cards and I establish this and that. So you're suggesting start putting yourself out there?
Yeah, unless you need online sales and that's the game you're going to, then that's different. And then I would say, how much of a website do we need to get things going by the end of the week?
So would you, even just doing, say, like a Facebook page or like something like that, is that sufficient?
Yeah, absolutely. Because everybody's on Facebook. So you start your, and do polls on Facebook and get people's buy-in, start developing a community, start asking for great ideas and start to poll to find out what people really want. So you really know what's going on. Don't make it up in your head. Just say, hey, everybody, I'm thinking about opening a hot dog stand. Where do you think's the best place for a hot dog stand? Next to Home Depot or downtown? And they're going to go, Home Depot, because everybody's at Home Depot. I'm hungry when I come out.
Right. Yeah. Right. Lauren, it's a good thing because question only because I think a lot of people, and this is what the final piece of this is about, imperfect, imperfect inspired actions, right? Inspired imperfect action. Regardless, it's really about taking action, and you don't have to wait for perfect, right? You don't have to wait. Okay, I've done the marketing. I've done the website. I'm ready to open the door and have everyone run in, because it doesn't always happen that way. Because you will find when you do steps and steps and steps and steps that you're going to evolve, like what Rich was just saying. You're going to evolve and be able to pivot accordingly, because that's what's going to take. Now, before you can do all that, you kind of have to have an idea about what type of business you want to run, what you're going to do. And it's important to know that first, because if you don't know that, what are you going to tell the web guy? What is a guy like Andrew Forbes, who's on here, who does amazing websites, is going to say to you, right? Because he's going to ask you, so tell me about the business. And if you don't know who the client you want, what product or service you have, he's not going to be able to actually put that out there, right? So it really is about understanding first and then say, okay, I'm going to take the first step and then see where that step goes. Am I wrong, Rich? Or
100% on there. Yeah, 100% on there. This is the part that I love the most. And so think about it from this perspective. Remember, the guy that invented the waffle cone was an ice cream vendor that ran out of cones. And he went over to another vendor, grabbed a waffle, wrapped it around, and put some ice cream in it, and he created the waffle cone.
Absolutely.
So crisis creates opportunity. You just got to see it for what it is. So allow yourself to go, how can I solve the problem? Not saying, oh, I can't do it. Just saying, how can I solve this problem? And you'll find new opportunities and new, if you will, new creation for, some greatness.
Great.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich. I really appreciate that. Great after the meeting conversation, because usually after a great meeting, I find people just linger, right? Because they want to either continue the meeting or say, what did he say about me? What did happen, right? So there's always something going on there. So thank you once again, Rich, and thank everyone for participating today. I'm looking forward to seeing you all next Monday, where we're going to be chatting with Ram and Kohan here around the career, because what do you do after you got laid off? And what if you want to find a new career? How do you actually go about doing that? And so that's what Ram is going to be talking about next week. So if you haven't registered, please do. Don't forget about the Survey Monkey, that survey that we want to send out for your feedback. We'll also include it in the email when we send that information out. Have a great week. Take care, everyone. Thanks again, Rich.